Hello everyone, Sheo here. This is the start of a new tutorial series for Ultimate Character Controller 3. Our first topic here will be throwables. So throwables are, as the name suggests, items that are thrown by a character and usually spawned from their hand. So the most obvious example, of course, is grenades, which are ubiquitous in shooter games. But you also have rocks or bottles from stealth games that are used to distract enemies, for example. Here today, we're going to try and reproduce this flow and explosion, like this. Nothing more for the moment. Alright, so let's get started. First of all, I would like you to take a look at this folder here, which contains some useful prefabs, especially this projectile and this weapon. We are going to use both as references. However, we are not going to use this model. Instead, what I want you to do here is go to the Unity Asset Store and find a grenade model that you like. This way, you will see that this system works with pretty much any model. The only condition, however, is that it must have a detachable pin for the purpose of this tutorial. You will understand why later on. So my personal choice here is going to be this MK2 grenade by Build Eldala. But once again, you can take whichever you like. So let's import this model. Now, depending on the model you chose, some adjustments might be necessary. In this case, while I really like this model, it is way too big. So I'm just going to correct that by giving it a scale factor of 0.1. And I'm going to make my own prefab out of these two. So this spiral here is the pin. I'm going to rename it as such, like this. And there we go. Next, here is a very simple scene with some idle enemy agents here and a player character with first and third person perspectives enabled. Please note that I expect you to know some of the basics of UCC 3 before watching this video. Namely, I expect you to know how to set up a character in first and third person perspectives and how to set up a weapon also in both perspectives. You also have to know about the state system. If you don't, please learn how to use it. It is incredibly useful. Now let's get to it. Let's drag this model into our scene and open the main manager for Ultimate Character Controller. First of all, before creating the actual item, we need to make an item definition. We're going to name it something like my frag grenade, or whatever you want, really. And then we're going to make the actual item. So let's drag this in. I'll name it MK2 frag grenade weapon. Do not drag a character in there because we want this to be a prefab used by everyone. The slot ID can be left to 0. We're going to make this a primary weapon held in the right hand. And there we're going to use our newly created definition. And now for the animator item ID, we're going to look at the existing prefab from UCC. And the default value is of 41. So the animator will need this value to play the flowing animations. The rest can be left as it is. We will not need an animator for this item. And we are going to add a throwable action only for the moment. Let's build this and save it wherever you save your items. Like this. And sorry, one more thing actually. Go back to this manager and go to Object here. Oops. Let's drag this model in again. and here select grenade. I'll name it MK2 frag grenade projectile. It is very important to differentiate this object from the base item. This will be the spawned item. Alright, so now we have a weapon and a projectile. We are going to start with the projectile. So double click to open the prefab, and first of all, we're going to have to take care of this capital collider, which is way too big. So let's enter isometric view and fix this. I'm personally going to make it very tight so that it doesn't look like it's floating above the ground. But you can do as you see fit. Like this. Alright, I'm personally going to leave it like that. Next, let's take a quick look at the grenade component, which, by the way, inherits from projectile base, which, if I remember correctly, inherits from trajectory object. So, first of all, I need you to disable collider on impact. We do not want that. For the moment, we just want some simple bouncing. Next, here's spawn objects on destruction. This is very important. We are going to select this explosion prefab for the frag grenades. And what we're going to do actually is duplicate this one. I'll call it my explosion. Oops. This way, we'll leave this one untouched and only use it as a reference. So let's drag this in. Let's set the probability to 1, and you can select random spin if you want, like this. I'm personally going to set the lifespan to 3. And here's what I was talking about earlier, the pin. We're going to drag this in, and this will enable the script to tell the character to detach the pin and keep it in his left hand. We're going to see that very soon. We are now going to take a look at the weapon. First of all, right-click this grenade prefab, select Properties, and this way we're going to cheat a little bit and use it as a reference. Now select your own grenade weapon prefab. Alright. So these values are correct, so why not copy them? And here, however, I personally recommend using audio config every time. Why is it? So this is my own. There is no frag grenade equip audio config or any grenade audio config by default in UCC. So I just recommend making yours. They are really easy to make. Just looks like this. All right, let's keep going. I'm once again going to copy this. It's an equip. Now, for the UI, we're going to use this icon here too, and these crosshairs. All right. So one thing we need here is to set the spawn parent. So we're going to use this default value linked to a grenade spawn point right. There, it's the same. We won't care about the rest for now. We're going to do the same for third-person perspective item. Let's paste this. And that's totally optional, but if you want, you can make a holster for grenades. I'm personally going to use one. And you can forget about the non-dominant hand IK. It won't be necessary for this weapon. Next, let's take a look at throwable action, which is the core component here. We're first going to copy this. All right. And we have several important modules here. First of all, we have this projectile thrower, which we can leave as it is for now. So it has some optional flow location and trajectory location transforms, which will which will determine where the grenade is spawned from and where the trajectory visualizer starts from. We'll take a look at that very soon. And we have this spawn projectile, which is extremely important. We're going to use our own prefab here. This one. And alright. This is the throwable visualized trajectory. So this will draw an arc when aiming. You should know one thing, however, there currently is an issue for this module. I tried disabling in first person only with a state, but at the moment I'm recording this video using 3.0.15, this does not work correctly, but you should be able to do that very easily. Where is it? There you go. So these do not work at the moment, but this should be fixed soon. All right. And one last thing that is absolutely necessary here is throwable grenade. So without this, the grenade cannot work properly. So we are going to copy this value here, which is linked to grenade pin attachment. And leave the rest as it is. And one last thing actually, we're going to need to add a line renderer. Without this, the visualized trajectory module will throw an error if this component is missing. So let's take care of that, line renderer. So we're going to use the same material, like that, and let's, of course, reduce the width. Something like that, maybe. Once again, do as you see fit. I'll set cast shadows to off, like that. There's also a trajectory object component on this object, but we'll take a closer look at it later on. Now that this is all done, we can leave this prefab and save it. And we need yet one more thing. I know, don't worry, we'll get to the throwing very soon. But what we need here is some item parents and attachments. So for both perspectives, you'll need a grenade pin attachment, which I personally put underneath the left hand, and a frag parent that you can simply put underneath the right hand, and it needs to have a grenade spawn point right, or whatever value you had set in the third person perspective or first person perspective item. Optionally, you can have this holster here. Once again, totally optional. And remember, this needs to be done for both perspectives, if you are using both, of course. Once this is done, we can finally go to our character and give him some grenades. And now let's hit play. right. So far, so good. There, and we just killed this red guy. Also, I'm going to unequip this grenade, and here it is on my character's thigh. So it's not a realistic holster, but I personally like this effect. If you've played Counter-Strike, there is a very rare situation you may have witnessed yourself, or at least heard of. It's a character having only 1 or 2 HPs left and getting killed by a grenade hitting him directly. Um, and this can be done here in UCC 3. By default, I think it deals like 10 damage points. There you go. We can of course modify the damage and explosion values. So for example, if we want the direct damage amount to be closer to Counter-Strike's, we can set it to like 2 here. We can also make the explosion much deadlier by giving it a value of like 80. And we can make the radius even larger, like 20. So let's try again. So now the enemies suffer more from the grenade, and if we hit one directly, he takes very little damage. One thing we almost forgot was the unpinning. Let's try throwing a grenade and hitting pause, like this. Now, let's focus on the pin for a moment here. Press Shift F and go frame by frame, and there we go. So now the pin is under the left hand, or rather under the attachment which is underneath the left hand. So it's not very realistic nor elegant, but the basic idea works. And it's going to be deleted very soon. There it is. It's been removed. Finally, there's one specific issue we have to talk about. It's a rendering issue in first-person view. So let's simply throw a grenade in first-person view. You may have missed it, but now let's go again frame by frame. There, can you see it? There is a visual paradox here. The grenade should be held within the hand. However, somehow the hand is entirely drawn on top of the grenade. And that's very weird once you notice it. So here is one way to solve the issue in Unity's built-in render pipeline. Select your weapon, and underneath Throwable Action, go to the Projectile module group, select Spawn Projectile, and you can see this layer mask here named Start Layer. By default, its value is Ignore Raycast. It's what you're supposed to do for the third person. However, for the first person, we're rather going to need Overlay. However, since we are using both perspectives, we're going to need the state system to solve the issue. So let's create a new preset here. Let's name it first person, like this. And now for the start layer, we're going to select, I think, 29. Okay, so overlay is set to 29 here, so it's the one we need. So like for 1 second, it will stay on the overlay layer. Now, let's go back to play mode. And we're going to go frame by frame again. There you go. We no longer have this paradox. The grenade is correctly held by the character. It's a bit big, I know. But you can fix this kind of issue by just reducing the parent scale. And there you go. Alright, that's all for today. In this video, you learned how to set up a basic grenade and are able to use it to damage enemies either with a direct hit or through an explosion's radius. We also made sure that everything was correct on the visual side. We have a trajectory visualizer, correct positioning in the character's hands, and fixed the built-in rendering issue in first-person perspective. There are many things left to cover, like bouncing and many grenade and explosion parameters we haven't seen yet. Don't worry, we'll get there soon. If you found this video useful and want to see more of it, please consider donating to my Ko-fi page. You'll find the link in the description below. And if you want to suggest some specific topic to cover, don't hesitate, you can do so in the comments or on the forum page. In any case, thank you very much for watching and have a good day or good night. Bye.